Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. I'm your host, Tyler Postal from Voker. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a fellow YC founder, Ranjali from Slashy. She's a co-founder there, and Slashy is the intelligent inbox. Slashy learns how you write, drafts replies for you, and handles busy work so you can focus on what matters. Ranjali, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, why don't we start a bit, with the founding story? How'd you get the idea for Slashy? Where'd you meet your co-founders? What were you doing before this?
Yeah, long journey. Well, in hindsight, not too long. It's been a year of me working with my co-founders. Before this, we were all at Georgia Tech. That's where we met, and met Voker, who's our CEO, and then Harsha, and then we went through we went through two iterations of our product before we did YC summer 25. And yeah, back then we were building a general agent that connects to your work apps, and you can essentially create like custom workflows on top of it, and just have it do like tasks across multiple tools, in like a chatbot style. But yeah, we learned a lot from that, during the batch, and decided to focus in on email, because we realized that being one of the most connected tools, because of course email holds the most context in like a knowledge worker's life, but it's also where tone is the most nuanced, because you're trying to close deals with people, you're trying to hire like your next engineer. And so in order for those things to really manifest as a founder, you're super wary about like your tone, and AI isn't the best at that. So that's what we're working on.
Amazing. Yeah, when we founded Voker, I hate email in general, but it's an important part of being a founder. And so we tried out Superhuman, and I love like the UX compared to like Gmail. And they had all these claims about, AI drafting, emails for you and things like that. But to your point, I was never happy with the tone, or anything like that. So I ended up not ever really adopting the AI features of it. I still enjoy like all the shortcuts and the UX there, but I definitely want to get into maybe later what sets you guys apart and how you've kind of cracked some of those challenges. But yeah, maybe let's start out with a bit more about who's your ideal user. Who are your early customers? Are these founders? Are this anyone using email? Is it a specific type of knowledge worker?
Yeah, it is founders. It's people who are watching this podcast. It's you and I, right? It's people who are very early in their journeys of like, starting a business, and especially people who are more like sales and fundraising oriented. So, CEOs. So we are spending like a lot of time kind of making sure that we're on top of, all the opportunities in our inbox, and making sure that if a deal is about to close, we're like saying the right things and making sure that it's going the right way. So yeah, those are the right types of users. And then of course, like VCs. Of course, if you're building for tech founders, you end up in VC inboxes as
Yeah.
well. So you onboarded a few of those.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about sort of the agentic features of Slashy? I could make some guesses, but how do you guys break up, the product features? Do you have things like labeling and then also drafting? At a high level, what are those various features that are powered by AI? And then next we'll get into like, are they each powered by one different agent or, multiple agents, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So of course, core part of AI and email is drafting. That's what everyone is going kind of outside of their inbox into ChatGPT or Claude for. Refine this email. So yeah, that's certainly a big chunk of it. And then labeling, and then of course we give you like a agent that you can talk to within your email client, and then also on your phone. So let's say you're on the go and you're just like, hey, I remember this one email that I needed to get back to. Can you give me all the context necessary? So there's of course the experience of just going through your inbox the way that you would not normally, but then also just like a chat based way to access your email. And auto drafting is where a lot of our memory system goes into play. So the agent essentially learns over time from, of course, like the corrections you make to what it generates. And then you can also just teach it on the side. Hey, like I notice you keep making this mistake. Can you not? And so it just notes that as a memory for the future. And of course, it's like memory cleanups, etc., that we do in the background. Happy to go into that into more detail there, but yeah.
Awesome. I love that example of like, oh, I know there's some email that I need to respond to, but I can't remember exactly what it is. That's like every day of my life. There's some task that I'm like, I could give you a few, you know, aspects of the thing that I remember, like, oh, it was someone, a salesperson, or it was an opportunity, but I don't remember their name and I don't remember what it's about. And so being able to just kind of like chat with an agent that has the memory to go find that without you having to scroll through every email, I could see that being really valuable as a founder. When you talk about all these different features, there's the auto drafting, there's classification, there's the memory component. Give us a high level of like the agent architecture behind the scenes. What's working for you guys? What have you tried? Is it one agent with orchestrating sub agents? Is it multiple agents? Is it a workflow that has agentic steps? A lot of people are still figuring out how to build high quality agents. So what have you guys found to be the most successful?
The multi-agents actually ended up being the most useful for us. So, of course, built a general agent, went through a lot of iterations because there are the value is literally just how well does the AI do, right? And there's not much of like a UI component to it. So, yeah, we experimented first with single agent, and then with multi-agent, saw that you know especially if you have a memory system like a notepad kind of that you're keeping and also passing in every now and then, you need a separate tool for it. It's not, you can't just pass in like the entire context window of what the agent has learned over time about the user into the chat. So of course, like, you need a tool. And then there's a lot of repetitive actions that keep happening. So let's say like user consistently wants to do like meeting prep or any use case that is like consistent across a lot of users. Just creating a tool for that ends up being a lot more powerful than running an agent again and again for the same use case.
I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe let's dive in a bit more on like what you mentioned about tools. So it sounds like you have multiple agents for different things. Do you have one that's kind of like the mother of all agents, or are they all kind of equal that is orchestrating, or do they all kind of sit equally? And then what's like the number of tools you've found per agent that makes the most sense? Is it 2 tools? Is it 10? Is it 100?
I mean, the way that we think about it is like experimenting on this is good, but you don't need to like reinvent the wheel when there's already agents doing really really well on really hard coding tasks. So we look at Cursor, we look at Claude Code, etc., to see what's the state of the art in terms of the right balance between how many tokens per tool and how many tools. So we kind of do a max of 20, which we found to just be like a good rule of thumb for general agent actions. But yeah, outside of that, we don't have that many integrations into Slashy. It's just like kind of stuff that we've built internally, right? Like the memory system, for instance, or creating labels, for instance, or like searching for emails. Like these are the kind of tools that are very specific to like what you do with an email. And yeah, I mean, iterating on those things is, of course, it's like a gradual process, right? Like we are talking to your users all day, and if they say, "Hey, the search specifically failed," you go and see, okay, what happened. And a lot of times, it's actually not an agent fault. It's just like something that's just systematically wrong with a provider we're using, or how we're architecting like the search query, etc. So, yeah.
Very interesting. When it comes to those tools, you mentioned like you try to keep it at 20 is like the max. What do you find is like the most important part of designing a tool? There's obviously like describing the name of the tool, like, and then giving it a description for the agent to understand it. But I think something that people, didn't think about or talk about a lot in the early days of tooling is that like, hey, those tools are still calling some API, likely calling some API behind the scenes. And if that has rate limits, or if that isn't, structured in the right way, the agent could choose the right tool and use it in a way that makes sense, and then it could still fail. Have you run into any of those kind of issues? And what is your approach to building like those APIs that the tools use? Can you describe maybe one of them as an example?
Honestly, I would just try and work instead of trying working around the rate limits of like whatever apps you're working with. I would try and just keep an index of the data and you know, kind of save yourself that problem because for us we're essentially like the choice was between working around or like the Gmail API, or you use like sort of a third party provider that can do like a that can index emails semantically and then just do like semantic search on them over time. So I think that's actually what saved us a lot of trouble there, specifically for Gmail.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. And so when it comes to building, this memory system that you talked about, sounds pretty core to the product. What have you found to work? There's like a lot of off the shelf tools that are being created. There are people who do what you mentioned of like just throw all the context you can fit in, call that memory, which is probably not like an advanced memory system. What have you guys developed, and what's your approach to memory? It sounds like you have like a tool to access memory. Is that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, we haven't really figured it out. It's very in like in its nascent stages. You know, we're looking to people honestly as our source of truth for what good memory looks like. Like I personally am EAing for founders, you know, writing emails for them on their behalf or like scheduling calls, etc., and seeing like, hey, like what do I really care about? What are like sort of the top 4 or 5 different categories of information that I always need to keep in my head in order to do a good job? And what are exceptions? What is like the how do I think of an exception in the first place? You know, like there's just a lot of implicit thinking that we do in our heads. And so I've just been forcing myself to like write it all out and like try and find patterns. So it's very much just seeing like, okay, this is what's happening out in the wild and we need to make software do this.
I love that. I love like, taking human experience to inform how we build agents. And it sounds like a very manual process to do that. You're writing emails for founders, you're taking notes. That's very aligned with like the YC, mantra of doing things that don't scale. By you spending all that time figuring this out and helping to architect a system, that's probably going to be a moat that sets you apart from someone else who just like throws all the context in, or something like that when they're building like a memory system. You guys have actual experience that you're designing the system off of.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think and being an EA is fun. I don't mind it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you find is the, maybe one or two use cases or workflows that are saving founders the most time and they're most like delighted by when they see that Slashy can handle that? Is it telling them what the most important emails are? Is it just drafting responses? Is it, you know, reminding them that they need to respond to someone?
I mean, I think it's like everything, right? I think it's anything that this is a weird way to think about it, but it's how I think about it. It's whatever like just gives you like a boost of dopamine. And a lot of times dopamine comes from remembering something that you could have forgotten. Like that's actually like top one, I think like top 3 moments definitely in someone's time using Slashy is when like it sends them a text or a reminder about something that they should have done and it actually ends up being right. um at the same time though, yeah, like this is something that's great, but it doesn't happen super often. Most people, you know, check their email like once in the day, once in the night, and um they're pretty kind of on top of stuff. The second is when the writing is exactly right. So, of course, as a CEO, you're thinking about your wording quite a lot, right? Like you want to send out something super sweet, concise. That's how people talk in Silicon Valley. But at the same time, keep like a nuance there. Like if you're talking to someone that has more leverage than you, how would you speak to them compared to, you know, you have more leverage? So there's nuances there in drafting. And yeah, I think these are the sort of the 2 main things, right? It's just like knowing what needs to be responded to and responding to it in the right way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. It really resonates. I would share those as the top two things, as a founder writing emails too. How do you handle that challenge of writing in, the right tone or the right way to someone who has more leverage? Is that prompts? Is that tools? Is that fine tuning? How have you guys managed to make your agent good at that?
Leverage is very interesting. So you can do sort of a combination of things, right? You just don't. So for us, we've kind of built in like a light CRM inside of Slashy's memory system. So whenever there's like a new person that you're talking to, they just get added as like a new entity, and then your context with them also gets added to like that memory about that person. And so whenever you're emailing them next, it gets used. In the context of like the auto draft being generated. And then, of course, even if the writing is somewhat right, there is a little bit of anxiety usually if someone has more levers than you. So we built in like a feature to get like a review, like a 1 out of 5 rating on your email in Slashy, which kind of tells you, you're trying to close this person, but this doesn't really do a good job of it because of XYZ. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, I could keep going. I'm sure you guys have a ton of other learnings that other folks building agents would love to hear about, but I want to put your website up on the screen before we have to go. It's slashy SLASHY.com. Tell us about who should check out Slashy. How do they follow along? How do they try out the product?
Yeah. So guys, sign up for the waitlist if you want to try out Slashy. This is for anyone who has a barrage of emails and is running their own business. I think if you're a young founder, early stage person, whatever that is for you, if you're doing sales and growth at a company, this could be useful for you. Hit us up on my number 786-623-7999. Happy to onboard you, or just sign up on the waitlist.
Amazing. And before we sign off, what's next for Slashy? Like, what's the next big thing you're working towards, whether it's a feature or a launch? What should people be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, launch will be out in a few months, but I think right now we're very much just focused on working with our users, and if you become a Slashy user, beware, we will be talking to you every single day, and making the product incrementally better every day.
Amazing. That's the life of a founder and someone building a product. Well, really appreciate you taking the time. It was great chatting about all the learnings that you all have had going through YC, building Slashy, and multiple iterations of different product ideas. For everyone listening in, thanks for listening to Built to Ship. If you're building something, go ship it, and see you next time.